There it goes. Yeah, there it goes. Let me just pull it up so I can see the comments on YouTube and Facebook. All right. Okay. So, welcome to Soulogy Speaks, Soul Speaks 5D, Soulogy, whatever you want to call it. We've had so many names over the year, but they all have the name Soul in it. And we have it's been a few days since I've done a show because there's been just massive, I put a post up and I said, this is the biggest energies I've ever felt in my life. And I said, if there's ever going to be a solar flash, it's going to come now, but it's not going to be that one where it comes down. And everybody's like, oh, la, la, la. It's going to be more like the giant magic mirror of seeing self before we go there kind of thing. But thank you for coming in. We've got a special show tonight. We've got a couple of beautiful sisters here that have been doing the work like so many of you have. And they've got an event in Sedona coming up. And that's part of our conversation. But welcome, Brandy. Welcome, Andrea. And thank you for coming in to share space with me, sacred space, and being open to what you're doing and who you are and what's going on and all that stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for having us with you here. So happy to be here.
Mm.
Thank you. We're all about the same. It's all about the soul.
Yes,
So,
thank you, thank you.
so I know your event's taking place in Sedona, and it's
Yes.
September. What is it? What's the
Six.
date? 6, right? That's what I
September
thought.
6th,
Yeah.
yes.
And I know, Brandy, you've been in and around Sedona. I don't know exactly for how long, but I know in the 11 times I've been there, I've probably seen you 3 or 4 times easy. And we've collaborated. So some people would be familiar with you, and I could tell by the post, the people that engaged it with you being in that area. Andrea is from South Florida, and she has an interesting bio, as does Brandy. And so, not as many people may know her in the Sedona area, but Sedona is a great place. I mean, we held the first Soulgy Fest there, and people came from literally all over the world.
Yeah.
And there was 100 people. And so, it's not about the numbers, it's about the space, it's about the intention and what we're bringing forth or attempting to bring forth today. And I believe we will reach that potential. But so, having said that, let's start with just the first few minutes, just kind of getting to know everybody. For those that aren't familiar with either one of you, Andrea, let's start with you. You are the nurse medium, is the tagline you go by, and I would just like in a concise way, just how did you become that? How are you that? Where are you? Who are you? What are you? Why are you? you know?
Who, what, when, where, why. So I am Andrea Ramos, the nurse medium. So I have been a nurse for many, many, many years. And I also hold a doctorate in functional, a doctorate in holistic, and a doctorate in spiritual medicine. So
Mm,
I primarily help first responders, human traffic victims, and people that are going through a lot of trauma. But the key tag to the nurse medium was obviously being a nurse, but also ever since a young age, I've been able to connect people to their loved ones that have crossed over, have helped find, many missing people or maybe some, cold cases that have been going on and such. And so I just loved, that balance of both. I was like, how can I like kind of mesh the two worlds? Because honestly, the two worlds do connect, right? The aspect of healing on both sides, like here in the physical form as well as like beyond the veil. So I kind of just blended the two together.
mhm. All right. Yeah, that sounds perfect. And that'll lead us into Brandy. Now, Brandy, if you look at your bio, I mean, it's like kind of like a bibliography of a light worker. So and I knowing you personally, one of the things I know about you is that you are very passionate. Very passionate. And I remember a couple of conversations that we've had with a couple of initiatives that you were doing when I was in Sedona, and uh, you know, I remember your passion, but I also remember your open mindedness and your willingness to have a conversation that might expand beyond my current present beliefs. And I've also seen that in even the messages as I was looking back at the last couple of years, and kind of where you were coming from, what you were saying. So it feels like you've arrived to this certain place and with someone else who's of the same band of frequency. So can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about yourself, what you'd like to say, and how you got here, if you want to?
Okay. Yes. Love to. Thank you. Yeah, I, the journey of this has come from, many kind of, chapters, if you will. And, but I would say like the biggest one started when my mother died. So prior, I was really involved in the whole NLP kind of world and the power of mind and the power of belief. And I was helping people learn, I was helping people walk over fire, and break through boards and things like that. And then I really thought I had it all figured out back then. I was very much in that personal power mode, doing a lot of work with Tony Robbins. So, I was now I'm
We've
the
all been
voice.
there. And
Yes, right.
that's when the universe comes in and kicks you in the ass.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then, yeah, and that was for me when my mother died. I was like, I love my mother more than life itself, very close to her. And like, it's kind of like I had this intuition that she was going to die a year before. And I would call her crying and going, and my mom, there was no signs. Seemed perfect. There was absolutely no signs, but I would call her crying, go, Mom, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to be here without you. I want to go first, and she's like, girl, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? I'm fine. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And it's just like my soul knew, and it was crying. It was
Mm.
crying a whole year before that it happened. And then there was that call that the day that it was like, oh, it's happening now kind of thing. And that is definitely the biggest, change, the time of change in my life, where then I was at what you call existential suffering, didn't want to be here, didn't want to exist. And that's when, though, God could work with me. He was able to get past that very protected, guarded, conscious mind that thought it had it all figured out. That was very guarded, very protected, and really work with me. And so, I really learned with the NLP, I was just kind of moving the furniture around, but I wasn't moving the furniture out, meaning all of that, ancestral programming, childhood wounding that I had, that was driving my life, my thoughts, my feelings, my worries, my fears, my, things that kept my patterns that kept showing up in my life over and over and over again. And so, yeah, that's when spirit really, really worked with me. I had a divine experience with this Diksha energy that I use for helping others. And it made me go, I need to know more of that. What was that? I need more of that, because I went from feeling like a state of, anxiety, and like that. And I didn't want to be here. I was in a constant state of anxiety. It was like the cortisol would hit me at nighttime, so I wouldn't sleep. And so the adrenaline would hit me during the day, and just in this state of anxiety. And so I was looking for anything to help me with this. And I discovered this thing called Diksha, which is from India. And from there, like all of a sudden I was able to sleep. I had all this awareness of what went on, because there's all this truth that happened when my mother died, going through her journals, all of my belief systems about my family, like exploded. And I was like, yeah, shocked and horrified of what I learned, went against everything that I had believed about my family and my life.
Mm.
And so it was, so that's part of why I was like in this state of anxiety. And I developed a lot of anger for people that I blamed for my mother's death, uh, through these things I read in the journal. And yet I shoved them down because I was afraid to tell my family, because I was afraid, I'm an only child, I was afraid I would lose them too. So I didn't tell them. And so I just kind of shoved down all this anger. And that's where this divine energy went. It went straight to my liver, which, one, I didn't know where my liver was at the time. And I didn't know that that's where you stored anger. But that energy went straight to my liver, and it felt like it was so much, it was tingling so much, almost to the point of pain. It wasn't pain, but it felt like pain. And I was like freaked out. And the guy who did this Diksha to me, he gave me his number. He said, something might happen, something might not, but if something happens, here's my number. And this started happening about 1 a.m. And I called him and he didn't answer. Imagine that. He didn't answer at 1:30 in the morning. So then I called my father and I told my father, Dad, I went to this person. This is his name. This is his number. This is where his address is. If anything happens to me, go get him. Like I was that freaked out, thinking like I didn't know what I did to myself, because of this energy taking over, and that feeling, so much almost like pain and the whole body vibrating. But after that happened, like the next day, one, I was really tired and a little out of it. But after that, it was like I had all the knowledge of all the things that had happened that was causing me that anxiety and anger and things like that. But I felt peaceful and the anxiety was gone, and I was able to sleep. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I need to, find out what this is. I need to go learn about it, learn how to do it. So I found out and went to India. And yeah, that first time, it's like a 45-day program, and you're like in silence, and just going internal. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's divine energy that's so
Yeah.
powerful. My vibration was so low at that time that when I got there, I just could only sleep. I couldn't, I was just sleeping because it was overwhelming for my vibration at that time. It was really low. And I remember like I slept a couple of days, and then we were starting, and I was like first in line, and I went right, through the doors, and they put this beautiful like lei on you. And then I'm sitting in front of the dasas, which are Indian monks, right in front. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm like this the whole time. I can hear what they're saying, but I can't keep my head up because they're so high vibration that my low vibration couldn't even like stay awake and keep my head up. I mean, that's how powerful this whole experience was, this journey that really started me on this journey of
Wow.
real
Wow,
transformation.
that's wild. That's a great recollection of because having done so many shows over the years, the last 9 years, and it's so interesting because everything's a metaphor, and everything comes through in the storytelling and the retelling, um, and there's just so many elements that we normally consider in our comprehension that are no longer applied, like time and space.
Mm-hmm.
And I've felt this story many times. And the interesting thing is, I've never had any experience with Diksha, right?
Okay.
But one time, and
Uh-huh.
I was in Salt Lake City, Utah, many years ago, like in 2017, and I went into town to talk to a radio station to try to let them let me do a show, right? Which it was a Mormon station. It didn't last very long. They told me I was a heathen. I needed to leave. But true story. But I stopped at some friend's house. It's a couple, some friends of mine, beautiful couple, and we had some time together, and very very powerful, very spiritual, very low key, very real, and they said, hey, we want to do something from it's like a diksha process or ritual or something like that. And
Mhm.
so I knelt on the floor and they told me to close my eyes.
Uh-huh.
And the woman was performing the process on me. I
Uh-huh.
think I remember, I think she touched my head and then, uh, and he was, I don't even know where he was, but in the process of this Diksha, my third eye expanded, obviously,
Wow.
and then he came in, and all this stuff happened that was like out of time and space. It was like dimensional third eye experience. It was very, very, I guess you would say, by human terms, paranormal. But yeah, and so when I was driving back to Provo, Utah, and that's a very mountainous area, so you're driving and you see all these mountains, and there's all this traffic because I was on the big freeway, and I'm telling you, something happened over 4 or 5 minutes that just blew my mind. It was like I literally leaped into another place. It was crazy.
Like
But
another timeline, meaning like
yeah,
you're
just no, it was literally like almost another dimension. But I knew
okay.
that it was associated. And as soon as I could drive, type and drive or talk and drive, I called my friends back. I'm like, hey man, what happened? And they're like, that's the Deek. Okay, so,
Yeah.
but let's go back to Andrea. And let me just set this up because you were humbly short. But I think that I really feel like doing this show all these years, people gain so much from the personal retelling of how it felt, not so much, you know what I mean? And so I know when I reawoke in 2011, May 2011, it was about 6 or 7 months later, I started having an acceleration in, psychic phenomena, that type of thing. Although I had a bunch by myself, but when you're doing it by yourself, nobody's around to see it, right? But
Right.
I first ran into a medium, and her family was mediums, and it was a powerful period. And then there were some more psychics and mediums and so on. And I started to really get an understanding of people that had that level of sight into the other side that weren't in the psych wards, that weren't being medicated. And I thought, whoa, wow, that's crazy. So I'm curious, and I think people, that are listening might be curious, Andrea, as to when this started for you, and did you have challenges in trying to be normal? And how were you able to then kind of extrapolate that in some sense of balance to be doing what you're doing today?
Well, I know it's probably a poor choice of words when I joke. It's like being a functioning schizophrenic, but it's actually kind of amusing because I did actually meet recently a lady that ran a many moons ago, back in like this place is closed now, but in upstate New York, where I'm originally from. And she had ran this psych ward, and she came here to Southwest Florida to meet me. And she goes, part of the and I was petrified when I saw her credentials. I was like, oh no, why does she want to meet me, right? And she sat with me and she goes, you know what? I don't want a reading. And I'm like, but you signed up for a reading. And she was like, I don't want it. She goes, I actually want to pick your brain. And I was like, okay. She's like, you have all these credentials. And she goes, I think it's rather brave of you to state so publicly that you're a psychic medium. And so I shared my story with her because many moons ago, when she was running this facility, she would come back and sit with her patients and talk to them. And she realized that some of these people that were being heavily medicated did have these abilities or gifts or what have you. And she said that it like in a sense ruined her for many years, and she left this place and was just like, I can't be a doctor anymore and all of these things. And I've experienced that over the course of time. So we'll backtrack along my story from when my parents always said from a very young age I had imaginary friends, so to speak. But I'll never forget the first time that I can consciously remember things. I mean, I kind of always saw spirit, but the biggest one was when I actually had a dialogue with one. And this was in, again, upstate New York. And I'm standing in my parents' master bedroom, and I'm actually looking in the mirror. And still to this day, even though there's a mirror right behind me, I don't like mirrors. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I was looking. I mean, they can be portals into other things, but I'm looking in this.
Narnia, it's Narnia.
Oh, of course, exactly. And I saw this person stand behind me, And we have this dialogue, and he tells me he's crossed over, and then he walks through the second story wall out the window and disappears. So of course I run downstairs, and some people have heard this story that have seen me in person before, but I run downstairs to my very Catholic mother, very Jewish father. So of course they're looking at me and they're like, oh no, you didn't. Like, no. And they're like suppressing everything. I thought, how cool is this? And they're like, that's terrible. And like, people are going to put you away and you can't tell people this. So of course, for years I was like, oh my goodness. So I kind of kept it quiet, but it would build and build and build. And I would be so petrified of it as a child. Imagine like spirit coming in, and and then no one to comfort you through these things or talk through these things with you. So fast forward in time, I always tease that I probably tell way too much. But in my first marriage, I had developed these gifts as I became pregnant with my son, who actually now shares the same gifts, and his gifts are like, I mean, you're talking this 13-year-old healer with medium gifts that are just well beyond mine.
They're coming. They're coming. They're going to make our jobs so much. They're going to make our jobs obsolete.
Oh, 100%. I mean, those children born in that age range, like he's 13 now, and I'll tell you that 2010 to like 2014 age, like a year of coming into this world, I'm telling you, they're different. They're definitely different, and they have this energy that this world definitely is going to need.
Think about the ones being born now.
Oh, I know. It blows my mind. There's definitely so many beings coming into this world, and it's just like you look and you're like, you can tell. Like, I mean, I don't know if you can, but I can just tell by like their energy and the frequencies, and it's just like it's just mind blowing. But we need them. We do.
You can see. I see it a lot with babies.
Yes.
Just being out and about grocery store or whatever, and also with animals.
Oh, absolutely, 100% with
With
animals.
animals, yeah.
And I'm noticing too them being. I mean, animals are observant many times. I mean, I feel that they acknowledge spirit, even like when I'm doing a reading and somebody has an animal, or if mine, I couldn't even bring mine anymore because my dog would be actively involved through a Zoom reading. she would have to be involved, and they pick up these different energies, and it's just they're different, and they even just wild or feral animals that have like come up to me even. And I think that when we speak their language, so to speak, it's a game changer. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
God, there's a lot of places we could go with this, but we have I want to make sure that we spend time talking about the event, but still want to kind of segue into some things. But thank you both for your comments and giving us. And again, I'm feeling into Andrea's, her experience, her retelling, and it feels very much the same. Like I could tell you so many stories of people that come on the show, and they're like, it wasn't maybe that specificity of a mediumship, but it was a connection to galactic or elementals or this or that. And having that experience like you had with your parents and being told to, put it down and all that stuff. So both of you have a very similar, to many of these stories that I'm referring to and the people that are listening, even though the details on the top might look different, but it's very much the same pattern. And then I think a lot of what's occurring now is, I feel personally that we went through a 12-year period. It ended on the solstice of last year. And then we moved into the other side. And we've got challenges of trying to figure out how this all works and how we're to align our thoughts, words, and actions. But there's one thing that seems to be very apparent. We didn't just come here to wake up. That was the first 12 years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just to be aware, we came in with. So now we have the experience, especially if you look at the last 12 years, which my soul's told me that we achieved what we came here to do. We planted the seeds in the distortion of that time. But nevertheless, one thing that seems to stand out now is that it's co-creation and collaboration, and it starts with two. whether it's romantic or otherwise, right? You can't get to unity consciousness or even oneness with 10 people if you can't do it with one. So I'm curious, and I think people might be curious as to how this kind of dovetailed. How did you guys come together? What was how did that look, in the physical synchronicities maybe? And, what's making it all gel? Because another thing that I'm noticing now too, and I've been out for years, right? But I can feel the new energy and it's different stepping out now. It's different. It's very vulnerable. It's very transparent. It's very raw. It's very authentic. You don't have a choice. And once you step into the arena, you're in the arena, right? So, how did that all come together? How are you guys feeling about what you're doing? And can you just give us some backdrop on that?
Yeah, I think I'll take the first stab at that. So yeah, so my passion is healing relationships, transforming life, um, and um, and so a big part of the journey, even if journey for myself, outside of the work that I do, has been working with mediums, and I feel like it's super, super important work. They do something that I cannot do, and that's healing with those relationships that are on that other side of the veil. And so many people are so stuck. I found that on both sides of the veil, people are stuck. Souls are stuck. The ones here that are still stuck in the pain, and then the ones on the other side that are now more conscious, more aware, more evolved, and they're like following around, going, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," and here's information, and please forgive me, and all that kind of stuff. But the person here can't hear it, and they're stuck in this cycle, and this other person is now stuck kind of following around trying to have them hear them, but the person can't hear them, and trying to help them. And so now this soul over here on the other side is not like totally evolving and doing all that it should be doing, because it's really stuck with the person that it loves, that is in this pain and mourning and in these kind of repeated cycles. And so I feel like one of the biggest things that needs to happen, along with healing the ancestral programming, childhood wounding, and all that programming, is those relationships on the other side. So it's something that I did a lot myself. Unfortunately, a lot of my family is on the other side, and so I would seek mediums, and I did have lots of beautiful healing, with me and my family. And as that healing happened, it really would actually transform things in my life. Like, I started not having those same patterns that I had in my life when those things got undone, that were kind of got stuck when, when somebody died, and continuing, healing between the energies didn't continue, kind of thing. And it's transformed everything for me. I know it's transformed my family on the other side too, that they are also themselves being able to evolve and grow. And so yeah, it's I feel like one of the most powerful things. So when I saw Andrea was coming into town in Sedona, beautiful Sedona, it's like, I got to go see her, I got to go meet her. And I had a powerful reading with her. And I like approached her saying, "Hey, I'm really wanting to, I've been wanting to do this with the medium, do these retreats that I used to do, 8-day retreats. This one's just a kind of a 6-day intro, but it's to lead to a bigger 8-day retreat where we can heal mind, body, spirit. So have mind, body, spirit liberation. And as we talk to combining, our different knowledge, our different modalities, like how much they're aligned, but how we also do different parts of it, or in different ways. So yeah, that's
Andrea, you want to add anything to that? Thank you
Yeah,
very
please. Thank you. Yeah, so it was interesting that we kind of so serendipitously met in Sedona. And when she approached me to do a couple things with her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant, because all of the things, I remember you gave me your book and you were like, just let me know how it is. And I'm reading it. Oh my gosh, like this just sounds so in alignment with so many things in my life too. And I just loved hearing like her approach. And so it's interesting because when I work with individuals, I do EMDR therapy, and so when I work through all of the things that she brings into it, and then we usually use that as like our timeline in order to like heal things. And then a lot of my spiritual insight obviously goes into everything that I do as well. And so when we were deciding like how do we want to pair this, I started to think to myself like, well, what aspect of this really it plays a lot of weight, and mediumship really holds a lot of weight in this, because there's people that come to me, for instance, that maybe had a really poor relationship with their family. And I'll be the first one to put it out there that like I came from a very traumatic childhood, and I didn't have relationships with some of my family members. And but after their crossing, I ended up having these beautiful relationships with them. And then I realized like I lost a husband, it'll be 5 years ago, in a couple of weeks. And I'll tell you, like the healing that he's even provided from the other side, and the relationship, like just because you have a certain relationship with an intimate partner or a family member or what have you in this earth plane, it can be very healing and different. Or you may not have had a relationship at all, and then now all of a sudden you have this beautiful relationship, and you get all of these like either messages or guidance, or the sorries that you never got, like as you had mentioned, Brandy, earlier. And it plays such a big role, because if you think about ancestral healing, we have DNA, right? And as we procreate, those DNA strands, right, they keep going. And so if your, let's say, great grandparent had this traumatic childhood, you may have had the best childhood in the world, right? And had the best parents and all these things, but yet you're still holding on to something. And it's like, where is this, these triggers coming from? Well, they were passed down to you. So that's like, so Brandy and I collectively, between like the two modalities that we use, it really just plays such an integral role in like helping that whole healing process from like our past lives to this life, right? Because we carry so much that sometimes we're just not presently aware, even in this lifetime, where did it come from? And I think it plays a big role from both sides of the veil.
Oh, absolutely. It does. I got a couple of reflections on that. It's an interesting conversation, because I haven't really got into a conversation about mediumship in a long time. But again, when I first woke up and I told you about what happened, um, I have, part of my evolution was to be in these situations, I guess. And the first one I was in was with a medium, and she asked me if I would go with her to this session. And the client was the mother of some, I guess you would say, young Hollywood actors, right? Uh, and I won't mention, just out of respect. But so in the middle of this thing, because one of her children had transitioned, and just so happened I'd met him a month before in a moment of like maybe 22 seconds, right? But anyway, my point is that I started to hear him speak. It was mediumship, basically. And so then I went through 3 or 4 months, and and I know because I documented it all, there was 34 different episodes of where people that I either knew or didn't know, where was part of this session with a medium, about 90% of the time, and I would have these conversations, right? And so it was part of my evolution, as I understood, as a soul, to take people to the other side. So the interesting part for me is the mediumship field. Some people might call it the astral field. Some people might say between the third and the fifth dimension. I don't really know. I know I spent a lot of time there for those first few years. But my point is that going back to what you're talking about is that there is a true means of open communication, whether there's a physicality or not. And so, like you, my wife at the time, she passed, and this was, I want to say, about 6 months into this whole story I'm telling you, right? And so we started to meet, and there was a lot of karma, and there was 11 years of time together, and so on. And she was one of those that had been diagnosed like schizophrenic and chronic depression, and but I also had lived with her, so I knew she had this vision And that's where I was referring to, and then talking to people on the show, like, how the hell did you guys even make it? You know what I mean? But my point is that once we started communicating, and it took 2 or 3 years because there was a lot, right? Um, I experienced what I had facilitated in those 34 episodes. I actually experienced it as a soul. And so, yes, I feel that this is something that is very much a part of the vast array of streams that these communities have kind of brought together through everyone's personal journeys. Again, this one might be galactic, this one's elemental, this one's mediumship, this one's, channeling, this one's, light language. I mean, there's so many different things kind of coming together. And so again, I just want to, on one hand, applaud you both for having the ovaries to come together and put it out there because the truth is, and I've done a lot of events over the years. I mean, I traveled for, years and just, ad hoc, just on the spot or plan a festival a few months out. It always comes down to this, for me anyway, to this let go, let go, let go, let go. Whether 10 people show or 150 people show, it's like there's something about the intention that drives the event. And I feel that, where two or more gather, it's much more powerful. So I feel like that the intertwining the both of them is uh, is a powerful intention in itself. And like I've learned on this show over the years, it's not always about what people say. It's about what you receive. So that's what I kind of am feeling into. And I just saw an orb go behind Brandy. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but so
It's
let's
probably
talk over your right shoulder. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't on my end. So
mom.
let's talk about what people could expect in Sedona on the 6th September. Let's talk about what they could expect in terms, if I was going to walk in the door and I'm going to open myself to Andrea and to Brandy as a client, as a someone that wants to experience it, experiencer, what would it look like?
You want me to jump in, Brandy?
Start.
So when first of all, I applaud them for showing up for themselves. That's first and foremost, right? Because they're open and to receive. And I think that's just so powerful and so beautiful in a person. And I know we're going to be opening up with a cacao ceremony and music with John Dumas, if I said his last name right. And we're going to be opening up that setting just to really open our heart space to receive, right? And to be more open because, cacao is a vasodilator. It opens up everything and it makes you, really expand into another level. And then Brandy's going to take it over from there. But I will end with mediumship in order to help bridge that gap between the physical and then the spiritual realm. And if I may just take like one quick second too, people that don't necessarily understand mediumship or they want to come to that at the first time or they're maybe a non-believer, so to speak, or they're like, how make it make sense, right? Mediumship kind of in a sense, I always say too, is like connecting to, bringing back the energy of who and what and where, as we started the beginning of the conversation, right? Of who those people are and just calling back the energy of the now, right? And then the way that mediumship, at least for myself, works is that I always say it's almost like a satellite. My little satellite antenna goes up, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm open to receive, right? To deliver these messages for these people." And it's kind of like just plugging in two cords together in a sense, right? So it's like plugging in the energy of here, connecting to a different frequency, depending on what frequency they're at, whether it's galactic frequency or whether it's just over the side of the veil, so to speak, and just connecting them so that we can open that space. And Brandy's going to do a beautiful job with, opening up that timeline, so to speak, right? Of breaking it down for everybody so that when we do connect, we're really open to that connection.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and not to because again, I feel that many of these different streams that have taken the physicality, because many of us, which both your stories actually speak to, when we awaken, when we start to get that big download, and so many of us got them, after traumatic experiences or whatever, but it seemed to come with a purpose to, don't just take this information, but you go do this specifically. So I feel like there's many streams there. And I think in my own experience, which I expressed to you earlier, I don't call myself a medium, but I don't not call myself a medium. You know what I mean? Like it's like a tool belt basically. And, but there is something to be said for what you're talking about, which is also the same basic template of the practitioners, because most of the people that I talk to on this show, 4,000 plus shows over the years, have been practitioners. Okay. And the common denominator for me, and you just spoke to it, was to open as a practitioner, as a conduit to your 360 degrees. And then the level that the other opens up to designates the potential realized in the moment. So you might say, in my own example that I gave earlier with my first experience, I went into straight mediumship because I was open and that person was open and the third person was open, right? So now, where am I going with this? In my experience with what I used to call Soulogy soul gatherings or Soulogy fest, if it was a bigger thing or anything, coming to town, hey, we're going to be at this place, come over here, like we did it over there next to Ty's office where I interviewed you, Brandy, one night. And I think like 50, 60 people showed up, and it was crazy because like this guy's over here in the corner singing opera light language and this lady's over here speaking scat jazz light language, and these magical things happen. You know what it is, especially if it's in Sedona. But my point is when you have a group of people coming into this sphere and it starts to, kind of assimilate or, homogenize or whatever you want to call it, it's a very powerful atmosphere in that given present moment. And I feel like that maybe if you could speak to, in however you could, both of you, to kind of take this macro, micro, kind of take it down to, I came to your event, but now I want to speak to you privately or have a session privately, either individually, one at a time, or together. What would be the feel of that experience as I come into it 360 degrees and open? What, and knowing that you would be two and the power of the two and the atmosphere of the event, what would that feel like? I don't know who wants to go first, but can you just kind of give me a taste?
So you're saying far as after the event, what would be there?
I'm just saying, like, I'm saying basically energetically speaking. So, not to be so literal and, linear, but just to say what is that like? Because that's half of what you're presenting or offering. If I sit with you, Brandy, and, what can I expect?
Okay, well, I say though collectively, at the event, and if we were working, privately, is that, first we create a sacred space, and really this is an internal journey. We're going to be, connecting to source, and, divine beings, divine energy. And in that, we're going to allow what needs to come up. And, we really focus it, it's called heal your heart, free your mind. That's a lot what happens. The heart is so powerful. It's really the thing that's, actually driving our lives, creating the majority of our life experience. It's the most, it's 5,000 times more powerful electromagnetically than the mind. It is just the most powerful part of our being. And so we are going to go whatever your heart is in your heart and is broadcasting out is determining your life experience. And so that's where we're really focusing. And that's kind of why we're starting off with that cacao ceremony, because that opens the heart. We're creating this sacred ceremony so that we can, bypass that conscious mind. That's also where the divine energy comes in. We really need to bypass the really guarded, conscious mind that doesn't want you to know that you're not it and it's not you, kind of thing. It wants you to think, you are your mind and your mind is you, and that you're not really this essence, the soul, right? And that's what we're doing, is we're kind of trying to bypass that conscious mind so that we can get into all of this, wrong programming. We can clean that out and we can return you back to your essence so that you can now create and experience life from that place instead of all of the, program you received, like in this lifetime, or programming from previous lifetime, or programming from your ancestors, kind of thing. And we can just return it back to your essence, your eternal power, that more peace that's like free your mind. It becomes a much more quiet mind than all of those things where you have all these stories and all these fears and all these limitations that have been, limiting your life and driving your life. So that is the end goal, is returning back to your essence so you can
I got
create
you.
life.
Yeah,
From
it reminds me of that Funkadelic song, "Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow." But yeah, I know a lot of people can relate to what you're talking about, and I hear what you're saying, and it feels to me like what I feel from the both of you is coming from the heart, and we do know the heart has its own electromagnetic field and so on and so on. We're learning so much. So much of what we're coming into isn't even something we can explain.
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, the intention and the purity of the intention, the openness, which is so important. Because as a practitioner, and I don't consider myself a practitioner, but I consider every one of these shows being a session. And sometimes I'm on one side of the aisle, and sometimes I'm on the other. But the bottom line is, how open am I? If I'm the one that's giving, because truly giving and receiving are the same thing. That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about a Vesica Pisces, where both of those become the same thing. We might call it sharing. But yeah, I really get that there's something pliable about what's going to occur. Okay, something that's subject to change. Like, how does it feel, kind of thing. Now, I'm curious to know, Andrea, like with the same kind of feeling with the question that I had asked prior, how does the mediumship come into the fold if I'm, and again, not as a literal linear experience, but the energy that you're bringing that's blending with Brandy, how does that accentuate things? Where does that come in? Do those that have transitioned play a part or not? Or is it something that just continues to unfold through the two things that you're both bringing together?
I would say both. So the more open we are to receiving, the more we will receive. And sometimes that's quite scary for people, but I always tell people, if you're not excited and scared, then you're probably not on the right path. So it's like just really being open to it, right? Because I mean, yeah, that's when the most, magic happens, or the most change occurs. Like, it's no different than if you're sitting in front of me for therapy, you're only going to get as much as you put into it, right? Well, the beauty of being open is you might get a lot and you might not like it at first, right? There's those moments like where you're just like, wow, that was heavy. Like when Brandy was talking about it earlier, it can hit you hard, but I feel that that's where the best and most powerful changes occur. So I always tell people, be so open. That's why, if you're coming to a medium, some people have come and they're like, oh, well, just make, like I said earlier, make it make sense, or I'm going to be very shut off to something. Well, I always tell people, think of it as an open house. You're not going to have an open house and lock the front door, right? Because then what's going to happen? I mean, we're going to know you're out there, but like, it's going to be muffled and you're not going to get all that you could benefit from. Right. So I always say just be at least kick that door open and allow yourself to experience, even if it's what I like to call sprinkles of knowledge and information, for you to carry that forward and do whatever it is that you feel. And you know, timelines are an interesting thing anyways, because I feel like we're always evolving and everything is always shifting and changing. So that might be just, even if you feel like you're getting like a sprinkle from it, that could just be that door being kicked open just enough. And then, like you experienced, like driving down the highway, maybe after our 6-hour event, and then all of a sudden, like 8 or 10 hours later, you're like, whoa, you know, and then all of a sudden everything starts to unfold and everything starts to shift and change. And that's a lot of times when I'll get phone calls. I read for a fire department not that long ago. And I remember this big guy came in and he was like, oh, whatever. Like, I just came in because it was entertainment. And he left sobbing. He couldn't even go back to work. And he was like that. And I got a phone call and you know, a couple days later, and he said that literally changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't even really all that open, but now it literally opened him up to so many things that were life changing.
Well, I mean, you know, timing, serendipity, you know,
Absolutely.
synchronicity. I mean, there's so many things involved. I've had experiences like that. Sometimes it wasn't the person crying, it was them becoming enraged.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. It's powerful.
but you know, I think it's important because you know we're going through an evolution. We're going through a transition. I've watched it. I've had the you know, the privilege of sitting in this chair and talking to so many practitioners and so many people from all these different walks of life, and really ultimately telling the same story. And in the story, I can see the evolution, and I can see that we can't schedule anymore. And I can see, well, you know, that we're heading that direction, that things are becoming so present that even that doesn't apply anymore. So it's not so much, and I have things that I, you know, kind of have on the drawing board and things that I want to do. But you talked about kicking the door down. Like when they come in, they being that who will sit opposite of you, so to
Mhm.
speak, that is really, I would say, in my own terms, 95% of it right there. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
something about that the energy is taking over. It's beyond word, it's beyond teaching, it's beyond modalities and processes and so on. And it is as we enter that space, even me doing what I'm doing now, haven't done a show in 5 days and have wanted to, but my soul's going, no, no.
Right.
And even coming into this one, I'm like, oh my God, you know, like it's, so what I'm trying to say is how, because I'm seeing it in myself. And I think this is maybe a seminal moment in that, how do we kick the door down? Because
Mhm.
if we're the ones that are initiating the space, what are we doing to kick the door down? Because you can see it in the field of the light workers, starseed communities. There's a lot of finger pointing, and there's a lot of, you know, you can see it disassembling, deconstructing. But I really feel like you both carry that. How do you kick the door down? Because you don't know where you'll be on that day. You don't know what will occur between now and then. You don't know how you'll feel. You don't know what the effects will be of what you ate or the travel that you took. You know what I mean? How do you get there, both of you?
I always just show up as I always try to, you know, I do a lot of travel. So for me, it's setting and protecting my own temple first, right? I set some serious boundaries, spiritual boundaries for sure. I do a lot of ho'oponopono and then create that nice healthy boundary for myself. And you mentioned a lot of things, like what am I putting into my body, making sure that I care for myself. I always show up because I want to show up as the best version of me, so I can be
Mm,
the most clear linear channel and be wide open to receive these messages so that I can be the best version of myself for the
mm,
person sitting in front of me or the many people before me, because that takes a lot of energy. Mediumship takes a lot of energy. I mean, they'll at the end of a large group session, I'm tired.
you need a big chocolate bar.
I do. It's so funny. Anybody that knows me that has seen me, I eat like glucose tablets during readings. They actually, spirit tends to deplete my water and my glucose when I do readings. So yeah, it does. I have to literally take good care of myself, because I can only really help heal others to that level that like I'm at that day, right? So I want to come in feeling the best version.
Yeah. Yeah, and again it goes back to that whole thing between the words or between the lines. Like even if you see, I share, a couple hundred posts a day in Soulogy group, and I get to see a lot of things. And you can see the evolution of the awareness coming out in post. I mean, in memes or whatever. And one of the big ones is, and again, I'll go back to the opening up thing, to enter the space with everything that you know, that you're aware of, and open 360 degrees. And because we're picking up on our reflection to the nth degree, you could almost say, like, the trajectory is there will be no more lies because we're going to see everything as truth. That determines the, efficacy, of the experience of the interaction. Yeah. So, yeah. So, Brandy, you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like these events are like divinely guided, and all the people that are supposed to be there, it's all divinely guided, and that that magic happens. So it could be like all these things could happen, and I could be worried about it when I'm in my, human self, but as soon as that event starts, it's just divinely guided and led. Like divine just shows up, works through me, speaks through me. It's magic. Everything makes sense. It was all perfect. That's what I experience at these
It's like
events.
game on,
Yeah,
game
and at
on.
the end, I guess that
Yeah,
because
that's what
it's
I'm talking
happened so
about.
many
It's
times.
like that's not what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah,
it's 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 something's changing.
yeah,
It's almost like what's going to happen, say in 6 months, is you're gonna say, I'm gonna say, one of us is gonna say, hey, we're gonna meet over here, and such date, right? And see what happens. Like there's something to be said for the collaboration and co-creation. And again, it starts with two. That's why I applaud you, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot because we're coming from a dualistic polarity. So there's so many different things involved in our active consciousness, including our egos. You know what I mean? Including our mind, and that's a very broad term. The heart, resonance, the soul, the spirit, the lineages. I mean, there's so many things coming into play. I always have this one adage that my soul gave me years ago, which is you only get one chance the first time. It only comes once. And so, like what you were talking about, like you're gonna have it because you're a human, partly human, and you're gonna come into the situation. All of a sudden, lights on, boom, and you move into this place that isn't behind you or in front of you. It's just like here, present. And it's weird
yeah,
because it doesn't feel comfortable. It's a bit nervous. There's a bit anxiety, but it's spontaneous, creative, imaginative, courageous. You know, it's presence. And so
yeah.
that's what I feel like you guys are. If I had to pick one word, well, I would have to pick two words. It'd be collaboration and presence and intention. I think that's the three that come to mind as I feel into your energy. So this is happening September the 6th. Where is it located in Sedona? Because I know a lot of people are familiar with Sedona. And where can they find the information? And I would ask you, I think I put it up in the body of the text, but I would still revisit the comment section on YouTube, X, and Facebook and just put the information in there. So, like, where is this happening? You
Uh,
mentioned something about 5 or 6 days. I'm a little bit confused there, but how long does it last?
oh,
Where is
okay.
it happening? And
Uh-huh.
can you please put up the links or send them to me and I'll put them up either way.
Yeah, just put it in the chat. Should I put it in the chat of this here?
You can put it in the chat and then I
Okay,
copy and paste it. And
okay.
that's what I do. I put them in the chat and then I wait till the live's over. And then you're talking about YouTube. then I copy and paste it to the comments on YouTube because that's two different streams of comments. And
Yeah.
then on Facebook, you can just put it on the, put it on the comments. It's
Comments.
one and the same.
Okay. Yeah, so it is being held at the Global Center for Christ Consciousness, which is a former Unity. They just changed their name to Global Center for Christ Consciousness, but it was a Unity, beautiful venue. And yeah, it is September 6th. It's from 1 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. here in beautiful Sedona. And so it's, set up to be kind of after your lunch and before your dinner. And is there something else? Besides
the chat,
I'll,
right?
Yeah,
Did you?
I'll do all that. I mean, the link in general, though, is a bit.ly, bit-ly URL. So it's bit.ly / heal heart and mind. So kind of like the name of it, heal your heart, free your mind. It's heal heart and mind. And I will put the link in the comments and stuff. Yeah.
You want to add anything, Andrea?
Oh no, I was just going to add in the Bitlo, but she already did. And we're posting it too. Obviously, it'll be all over our social media links and such as well. On Facebook, there's a link to that, and my events there, as well as on my Instagram, which is the Nurse Media.
Well, there's so many different things we can look at. I'm one of those people that questions everything, including the stars. They might be an overlay, and I am sold to the bone. Nothing's going to take my power. But I will have to say that numerology seems to have a very powerful presence in our lives, and you're talking about a 969 day.
969 day.
Yeah.
And is that good? Or is that
Well, yeah, Tesla
that.
said if you want to understand the universe and understand the 369. No, I think well, we know this because
like the Tesla technology energy, yeah.
Oh, the genius, yeah, the inventor. But we know this is a 9 year, so there's completion, which also means there's beginnings, and of course a 6, and then a double 9. I mean, it's going to be a powerful month. It's a powerful place. I can attest to that. 11 times going there, and I've had all kinds of experiences there of a multi-dimensional nature. Let's just put it that way. But I would love to be there. I'm going to be here till the middle of October in Mexico before I go back to the States, and maybe I can catch the next one. But yeah, I wish you the very best, both of you, and thank you for your service to humanity. Thank you for not giving up and having the giant ovaries to collaborate and put it out there, because it takes guts. It does, because things are changing so quickly. We're all going through the great reveal, and that's really where it all happens. And then to take, you know what I mean? And then to take that personal epiphany, revelation, information, data code, whatever you want to call it, and to put it out there is especially with another is very, 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 to me, very commendable, very, very, very ballsy. I just want to be frank.
I'd like to speak to that a little bit. Yeah, I really feel like this is so really important because, I really experience here in Sedona, like you said, it's a very powerful vortex. And so people here, if they live here, they have healing happening all the time. And really, it's like speeding up, because we're getting into this kind of, shift, this split. And so if there's things you still need to heal and you're supposed to kind of go into this, I don't know, positive evolution shift, then it's getting sped up to be handled, especially when you get into this energy of a vortex of Sedona. It really helps facilitate things really quickly. So that's why we feel like it's really important to have it here. And also to do it, because we're coming up to this kind of deadline that's, coming up, so we know that yeah, astrologically wise, we know that they have this kind of 2030 kind of agenda.
No, whatever.
Yeah,
That's a whole different show, and I'd have to debate that.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
no, but I hear what you're saying. And
yeah,
Mother Sedona's called me many times, and
yeah.
she doesn't play around. So
No,
Nope.
you're not going to get the gold without going into the grime and the grease and the crevices, and it will, no matter who you think you are. And that's really, to me, another testament to what you're putting on, because you've got two individuals that, just like the rest of us, that have the similar path to all of us, yet still have the wherewithal to put something like this together, and to do it in a place like that, because she doesn't play, So it's
true.
so it's such a fine line. But yeah, I feel like you guys are capturing that in motion, and I really feel like you're going to have an outstanding, expansive experience. And just you made a comment earlier, but my experience has been with some of these events that the effect isn't just, I got home and this happened. It's more like it's like months. Like oh, I was taken back. I went into dream state and I was there again, or this happened or that happened. So these things are not to be just, in my opinion, not just to be seen from the old paradigms, set of lenses, but to see things from the energetic grid that is starting to materialize through these alignments of thoughts, words, and actions and collaboration. So I applaud you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe we can get together afterwards and have another conversation. We can talk about astrology and the overlays and the influence that they think they have on me, or whatever the
Uh-huh.
case is. But yeah, there's so many things we can talk about, and I really feel like that's what it's all about. So I've really enjoyed this. It's been good coming back and sitting in this chair. And uh, do you want to, let's see, yes.
Oh,
Well, these things, yeah, we need to put these into the comments of the social media platforms, because
oh, yeah.
nobody's in the Zoom room.
Gonna see in here. Yeah. I was just putting the information in here for you.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, you guys take care. I know it's
Thank,
going to be great. Keep going, keep shining, stand tall, and thank you for coming in and sharing sacred space with me on Soulogy.
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Take care.
Wonderful to, yes, connect with you again, because it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.